In the book Lost in Transition, Smith talks a lot about sexual freedom and alcoholism that is affecting emerging adults today. And I would agree with much of what he says, especially the idea that media is a significant variable perpetuating the ongoing sexual liberation and alcoholism that is being experienced. Through watching so many films, which of course includes a sex scene that glorifies sexual activity so much that it becomes almost a fantasy, and it becomes obvious why we are such a sex-crazed society. And also in many films, especially about college, college is depicted as a sanctuary that nurtures parties and alcohol. I mean, just through my personal experience with my friends, I know numerous people that are just going to college just to party, which includes having sex with many girls and drinking and drugs. Whenever I talk to them, that's all that they really talk about. They're talking about how they're having a great time hooking up with girls all the time, and seldom do I hear about regrets and remorse that they feel. And when they actually do have that happen, it's usually just a funny story that they tell, and it becomes a source of entertainment, which only just causes them to want to do it more. And if anyone actually does try to discuss any emotional confusion or vulnerability that is experienced, they're just called a pussy. So then it just shuts them down right away. The consequences and negatives of sex and alcohol are well hidden, and it's probably why it will continue to exist. Another point that Smith presents is the idea of the sexual revolution creating a new set of social norms, which causes many emerging adults to be susceptible to the negative consequences of a sex-crazed society. Going back to the idea of college, through media, college students are basically expected to go party. There's significant social pressure to go party, and although at Goshen College it may be a little less compared to other big schools, but at a Big Ten university where they refer to as party schools, it is a much larger problem. Partying is a method in which people can go hook up with other people. It's where you're supposed to let loose and relieve all the stress that you built up through your work as a college student. You just drink alcohol. This does sound appealing to most, including me. Students are curious and partake, which of course would make someone a lot more susceptible to these negative consequences. And because not all experiences are going to be as great as the fantasy world that movies or media portrays. A third point that Smith talks about is that all emerging addicts or emerging adults are addicts, and some are more acceptable than others. When Smith makes that point, it seems that he has a tone behind it where it's kind of sounds bad, but I don't think that's necessarily the case. The term addiction has negative connotations to it, so it seems like it's a bad thing, but not all addictions are necessarily bad, especially when they are for something that can provide health benefits, such as playing sports or doing theater or singing or dancing. Those usually are referred to as hobbies, and which can be considered addiction that is very good and has positive effects. It becomes a problem once it is an addiction relies on a substance to be which could cause a lot of health issues. Lastly, I would agree that a dark side does exist in emerging adulthood, but at the same time I would have to say that it might be inevitable. Even if all substances such as drugs and alcohols were banned and everyone waited until marriage for sex, people would still be unhappy, although the magnitude or the amount would be probably far less. I sincerely believe that with sufficient self-discipline, sex and alcohol can be managed properly and could be used properly. which would help eradicate the dark side. Unfortunately, I do not think that this problem will be solved anytime soon because it is constantly being reinforced